When the doctor lost the bottom line, how terrible it was that they saw that the patient was beautiful and took advantage of her full-body anesthesia to invade her in turn. The girl clearly felt what she was going through, but she could do nothing but cry. This matter soon spread in the hospital, but the three of them not only did not receive any punishment, but each of them got a chance to survive. 10 years later, the girl also turned into the Queen of Revenge and made a crazy revenge on the villain who invaded her. The first one to suffer was the anesthesiologist, who has now become the director of the hospital but cannot change the fact that the sexy woman in front of him has already made him out of his mind. Are you going to tie your left hand and cover your eyes? Soon, all four of them were well protected. The beast thought that there would be a short-lived warning, but the one who welcomed him was a sharp-tongued fox. However, before the police could find any clues, he received a call and found another male corpse. And the one who died this time was the professor of the hospital. The same technique, the same cruelty. The doctor inferred that the murderer must be a master of dissection. Each knife was just right to cut through the blood vessels so that the victim could slowly feel his blood flow. He stretched the entire death process indefinitely, causing the victim to die slowly in great pain.
How much hatred did he have to do such a thing?
With a question, the police chief, Lao Jin, came to the hospital to understand the situation. Finally, in the mouth of the two guards, he learned about the rumor of that year. 10 years ago, a girl who was injured in a car accident was sent to the hospital. Her beauty immediately attracted the attention of everyone. This includes the professor and director who were killed. It is said that there was another person who violated the girl.
That was Li Jishu, who had already become the head of the Zhengxing Yu.
Lao Jin immediately determined that it was the girl who came back to take revenge. But because there was no evidence, he had no choice but to ask his subordinates to investigate the girl's information and to find Director Li himself to test it. Not knowing that he had just mentioned what happened that year, Director Li made a statement on the spot.
Kang Jung-woo, Ko Jin-soo, and you next. How is it?
I love this scenario. Get out of here right now. Lee Kung-so. I just poked him once, but if you react like that, will that rumor become true? Then, if I'm busy, the dean's reaction confirmed his guess, so Lao Jin began to monitor him 24 hours a day, hoping to lure out the murderer through this bait. However, the depressed Dean Lee was not a worry. He went to the nightclub almost every day to have fun, and the killer had already locked his target on him. When Lao Jin was looking for the dean to monitor him, he ran into the killer who was following the waiter. "Don't go in there!" Hearing that there were policemen, the killer dropped his knife on the ground in a panic. Seeing the other parties back leaving, Lao Jin immediately chased him, but he slipped away from the back door of the nightclub. Looking at the image left by the killer in the surveillance, Lao Jin was more convinced that the murderer was the girl who was violated by the three people that year. At this time, I also found out the girl's identity from the hospital. She changed her name to Xue Xiuzhen 7 years ago, and now she is a superstar who has just won the Best Actress award. Lao Jin immediately took her back to the police station for questioning. But when he mentioned the sleepless night 10 years ago, Xiuzhen neither admitted nor denied it. At that time, he didn't see anything. He didn't see anything, so he didn't know anything. The woman's attitude puzzled Lao Jin, but he was filming in another place when the case happened. He had a perfect alibi, so he had to let him go. At his wit's end, Lao Jin had to focus his attention on the knife left by the killer. According to the owner of the knife shop, this kind of claw knife originated in Indonesia. It is generally used to remove the minced meat from the bones. It is a common knife in raw meat shops. Since there was no paper left on the knife, the case was deadlocked again. But just when he was at his wit's end, he suddenly found that a new meat shops. Since there was no paper left on the knife, the case was deadlocked again. But just when he was at his wit's end, he suddenly found that a new meat shop had opened downstairs from his house. And the boss was actually a beautiful woman. She was skilled in knife skills. She could even sterilize the small wall on the wall. After returning home, Lao Jin couldn't fall asleep for a long time. His mind was full of the golden and red strokes of the boss's wife. When he counted 5,733 sheep, the sky finally brightened. After washing up and getting ready for work, Old Jin saw a large group of men gathered at the door of the butcher shop. These guys who never cook showed up early because of the boss's wife's stunning beauty. Old Jin couldn't help but walk forward. He was also blinded by the headlights. Just when Old Jin was daydreaming, a basin of cold water was poured on his head. I thought there was no one there. Next time, I'll make sure to avoid it. This is the first conversation between the two of them. Since then, the Old Jin will come to the butcher every day. One is attracted by the beauty of the boss's mother. The other is that he feels that he is too similar to that female killer. The same salty and spicy knife method. The same charming figure. Is all this really a coincidence? On the other hand, the death of a good friend also made the hospital director start to feel uneasy. Even when helping the patient do the surgery, the girl who appeared 10 years ago in front of him. The fear in his heart also made him start to have hallucinations. But this makes this pervert more excited. He actually took the time to go to the water while the nurse was out, want to treat the patient in time, but the nurse hit him. In order to seal his mouth, the hospital director actually buried the devil for many years. I don't know if I've been on the list of killers for a long time. It didn't take long for him to show up. But this assassination operation failed to tell the truth. Due to the immediate appearance of the hospital director's daughter, completely disrupted the plan of the killer. On the other hand, the hospital director hurt his right leg, and this beast also saved his own life. The Old Jin came to the butcher with a question, but this time he met an old lady here. The other side of the white hair is rough, but there is a scent of charm on the body. It seems to have smelled somewhere. I can't think of it for a moment. The Old Jin walked into the butcher, ready to go to the doctor again. The Old Jin also took the opportunity to buy meat. What do you want? Do you want me? You know how to eat meat. I'll give you the nose for free. Just when the boss was about to turn around and prepare to cut the meat, Old Jin suddenly found that the other party's right leg seemed to have been injured. The killer was just stabbed by the dean, and the boss was killed. What a coincidence. So Old Jin, disregarding his police identity, forced the boss to fall on the table. The moment he opened the skirt, all the doubts in his heart became a fact. He looked at this gentleman with an unwilling look in his eyes. It's a pretty rough job to get your flesh out of your bones. You're the only one who can do that right now. He didn't understand what the old man meant. The other side immediately put it on. However, at this time, the police officer in charge of protecting the dean of the hospital was let go instantly. And he slowly walked to the dean of the hospital. Just a glance. The female killer behind him quickly took out the knife, cut off all of the dean's hands. This knife made him feel ashamed as a professional doctor. At this time, the old lady rubbed her ear, said the same thing as 10 years ago.
李院长这才知道自己惹上了什么人。可当年那场闹剧实在引人入手，所以他一听到这句话，身体就立即有了反应。You're too good. The old lady slowly took off the president's pants and then put in a big wolf's head. When the old man brought people to the scene, President Lee had already been confiscated from the crime tool, but the forensic doctor judged from the knife wound on his wrist that the weapon was the same weapon. But this time, the killer is a left-handed person. Through the surveillance, it was found that the killer who kidnapped the president was extremely similar to the boss. But last night, he was obviously with himself. Did he really make a mistake in his own judgment? The case became even more puzzled. Until this day, the old man accidentally saw a news report on TV. The famous star Xue Xiuzhen was once again selected as the lead actress. This time, he played an old woman who was revengeful. This made the old man think of something instantly, because he had long seen the image of this old lady, and the fragrance on his body is just like the perfume used by Xue Xiuzhen. I layered the signature scent with the chrysanthemum. That's what you need to know first.
面具后面确实是薛秀珍，她一直隐忍了10年。Until recently, he found the butcher shop's boss's wife. He hoped that she could help him deal with those scum. But if that was the case, the boss's wife would be in danger. Old Jin hurried to the butcher shop. However, the shop was already empty. The boss's wife's phone was also turned off. How did the other party conceal the truth? At this time, another news was broadcast on TV. A vicious human trafficker in another city was brutally killed in his own home. Old Jin rushed to the crime scene. Looking at the familiar method of committing the crime, he immediately realized that it was all the boss's wife's masterpiece. After a few days of visits, he finally met the woman he had been thinking about, day and night, in a newly opened butcher shop. I guess you still had a conscience, even though you thought you'd quietly disappear. The boss mother did not argue with the blame of the old gold. However, when he took out the pistol, the boss mother immediately hit the pistol with a flying knife. Then the two of them fought together. In the end, the boss mother was convinced by the old gold. But looking at the woman he loved in front of his eyes, the old gold was unable to make up his mind. He lost his mind and rushed back to the police station, delivered resignation to the director. Since you can't punish the criminal, then he no longer has the right to be a police officer. Then the horse kept running back to the meet.